Welcome to the second part of this spotlight session. So I'm now Katie. I was Matt, but I'm Katie now. I'm also slightly nervous because I'm not a public speaker, so if I sound like someone's pointing a gun at me from the distance, you'll know what it is, but it's all good practice. So today we're going to be looking at Gerard's Herbal, and this is a fascinating book listing just about every plant species that you could find in England at the time, and the time was 1597. Gerard was actually born in 1545. He apprenticed to a barber surgeon in 1562 and worked various jobs, one of which was as a curator of the physic garden of the London College of Physicians. And he was also well known as a plant collector. He had many connections with people who worked abroad, who could bring plants from all parts of the globe to him. And he ended up in 1596 writing a catalogue of his plants that were growing in his garden in Holborn. That included 1,039 plants, which is quite incredible. And it was the first plant catalogue ever produced. There was some controversy over the publication of Gerard's Herbal, because the work was originally started by a Dr. Priest who also worked at the College of Physicians. It was a translation of Rembrandt de Douwen's, one of his seminal works. He was a Flemish botanist. I will try and pronounce it, but it is in Latin, so I will butcher it, and I'm very sorry. Stirpium Historae Pemptades Sex is the name of the book. It was essentially a herbal. He'd published another book, which again I'm going to butcher the name of, Book. That was translated and published in England as A New Herbal in 1578. So Gerard's Herbal was the second herbal to be published in England in 20 years, which in itself is quite incredible. Gerard, although this was a translation of de Douwen's work, started by someone else, Gerard mentioned none of this and claimed the work as his own. And Anna Pavord, in The Naming of Names, actually says that Gerard was a plagiarist and a crook. I think there's probably some more nuance to be found in that argument. Obviously, The Naming of Names is a great book if you want to find out more about the history of the publication of Gerard's Herbal. But this seems to be the kind of prevailing opinion of Gerard, which for either good or evil. The herbal includes some early illustrations of now common vegetables introduced from the Americas, including the potato of Virginia, which is not quite where they came from, but he was going in the right direction, I suppose. So he talks a bit about the potato here. I think this is one of the first pictures of a potato to occur in a book written in English. He also talks about the use of the potato, which, equaling goodness and wholeness, being either roasted in the embers or boiled and eaten with oil, vinegar and pepper, which actually is very nice. I have tried this because I thought, oh well, I'll give it a go. And it's actually not bad, or dressed any other way by the hand of some cunning in cookery. So essentially potatoes are great whichever way you eat them, which I could not agree more. Another interesting discovery in here occurs right at the back. So page 1391, which is of the goose tree, barnacle tree, or the tree bearing geese. So the idea, this is actually something that may predate Christianity. It's an ancient idea that the barnacle goose, which is actually a goose, I have a picture here. It is the barnacle goose, Branta leucopsis, actually grew on a tree and hatched from barnacles, was attached by the beak to these barnacles in the tree and would hatch as a fully formed adult and go off and swim in the sea like these geese are doing here. This was an explanation of where geese went to when they migrated for the winter. So because the barnacle goose is actually resident in parts of Norfolk and Suffolk and also Sussex as well, but in the vast majority of the country it's a coastal winter visitor. So to try and explain where these geese went in the summer, the barnacle goose tree was considered to be the most convenient explanation. Obviously, sort of Occam's razor might tell you that maybe it's a little bit too complicated to really be true, but you can't blame people for believing anything like that. I mean, I think it's a way of filling in the gaps in knowledge, which is very interesting and quite funny to read about today. So Gerard did actually claim that he'd found a barnacle goose tree on the coast. Obviously, I'm not sure how true that is, whether he believed it was one or whether he didn't. But anyway, it's a very interesting thing to look at in this book.